All right, are we ready to get started? Everyone ready? Okay. Can everyone hear me? You can give a thumbs up. This is what we ask the kids to do all the time. So I feel like I'm teaching again. But welcome to our 6th grade virtual curriculum night. Thank you so much for coming. If at any point during our presentation you have a question about something you're seeing, it's just easiest for us if you type it into the chat. So you've probably seen a few of those messages just popping up. There's an icon in the upper right-hand corner that kind of looks like a little message. So if you have a question, you can go ahead and type your questions into the chat, and we will answer all the questions at the end, just because we don't want people unmuting themselves and getting lots of feedback. So thank you for cooperating with that. So again, welcome. I am Mrs. Houle. I am one of your students' 6th grade teachers this year. I will be teaching science and social studies. Ms. Lagunas is our paraprofessional this year, and I will let the other teachers introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Ms. Romberg. I am the diverse learners teacher on the 6th grade team.
How you doing? My name is Mr. Werbach. I do reading and writing.
Hello, my name is Ms. Wicks, and I teach math.
All right, we're just going to play this short video.
Welcome to Canty School Virtual Curriculum Night. Tonight, you will learn about your child's remote learning classroom. While this is not how any of us wanted to begin our 2020-2021 school year, we are all dedicated to ensuring that your child has the opportunity to engage in learning, receive feedback, and interact with teachers and peers on a daily basis. There is a lot of new information, and ask that you use the chat feature to ask questions. Thank you, teachers, for presenting, and parents for coming to tonight's presentation.
All right, so what we have presented right here is the curriculum overview. I mean, I'm not going to read this whole thing to you. Basically, for me, for reading and writing, we're going to be using the literature book, which is that big, heavy yellow book that I sent home with you guys. And your kids have access to this online too. So if you decide to go on like a vacation or something, they'll have access to it online. So you don't need to lug that big thing around. Quarter 2, we'll probably start our first novel, The Breadwinner. Quarter 3, we're really going to work heavy on writing for an argumentative essay. And hopefully we will dig into another novel, Tuck Everlasting. And then quarter 4, my plan is to do another novel, but you know, with the way that things are, I'm not 100% how we're going to do it, but we're going to try our best to get through that.
So for math, you can see in quarter 1, we're going to be focusing heavily on the number system, kind of doing a lot of review. There's a lot of number system, fractions, decimals, the number line. That's going to be a lot of quarter 1. Quarter 2 is going to be probably the first time any of your kids have worked with heavily with expressions and equations. So that's really exciting for me that I get to introduce the concept of algebra to them in quarter 2, close also to quarter 3. Quarter 3 is kind of that introduction of ratios and rates. And then quarter 4 is going to be a focus on geometry and statistics.
For science, the most important thing for the students to know is that everything is going to be available online. Our entire curriculum is digital. We start off the quarter with quarter 1 with life science. We do a unit that we are already in called microbiome, and then we'll move into metabolism. Then in second quarter, we will do a unit called traits and reproduction. Then moving into a little bit more physics in quarter 3. And then back in quarter 4, we have Earth's changing climate. And within that unit, there's also an engineering component in quarter 4. For social studies, everything is also digital. I know that when students received their materials, there was a little magazine. So for the first magazine, they do have access to the paper version, but everything is also available digitally. We will kind of go through similar, there's not like, we don't do as different of units in social studies, so everything kind of overlaps because we do more current events. So within each quarter, we're going to do all the social studies components of civics, geography, economics, and then a combination of history, and all of that is surrounded by current events. So I teach all of those concepts by thinking about and using current event articles.
So we wanted to take this opportunity to really thank you for your kids have been amazing. Like, they keep us going. They are in class. We don't have problems with attendance or tardies, and we really appreciate that and know that you guys are working really hard to make sure your kids are online on time. So some tips, just to try, we know it's hard, but to try to put them in a quiet, distraction-free place if that's possible. We've also found that some parents have found it helpful to set alarms for their kids based on the schedule. We know it's hard in middle school to like convince them to eat a breakfast, but eating a breakfast might be helpful too. We also found we recognize that this is not the ideal situation, but we know that kids feed off us and they feed off our emotions. And we found it important to make sure to acknowledge that this is not the most ideal situation, but then to kind of move on from that, because we're not sure how long this is going to be happening. And to kind of wallow in that negativity is not going to be what's best for the kids, especially if our ultimate goal is to get them to grow as people and to grow as learners. So we have found it easier to acknowledge it, like, yes, this is not the best thing for any of us. And then let's try to make the best up. Let's try to make this the best situation we can. And the last thing, when in doubt, reach out. All of us are really open. All of us are willing to explain anything to you. If you're questioning why we're doing something or why we're teaching that, please reach out. We always are willing to explain anything, our curriculum. And a lot of times things get confused when the middleman is a middle schooler. So we want to make sure that you guys are emailing or calling us at any time.
All right, so we thought we'd just kind of go over our daily schedule. Each class is kind of composed of two different components, a synchronous version and an asynchronous version, which we'll go over a little bit in more details. But it just means that because each block has so much time built into it, we don't teach or lecture for an hour and a half, right? So if you look at block 1, it starts at 8 o'clock and goes till 9:25. We're not lecturing that entire time. There's built-in work time for the students as well to practice the skills that are taught during that time period. So we tried to make it a schedule that would be sustainable for the kids, and have those built-in breaks as well. So if you notice, between each block, there is some built-in time where kids can use the restroom, get a snack, whatever the case is, stretch out, walk a little bit. We know sitting in front of the computer all day is not something that any of us are used to. So we do have those breaks built into the schedule. Like Ms. Wick said, your kids have been awesome so far about being on time and following the schedule. They've been, following our expectations that we kind of came up with together. So at this point, it seems like most of them are familiar with this schedule. They've been pretty good about making it to their specials classes, but we don't want them to forget that after lunch, they do have to attend those specials. And each week, this is different this school year, each week they will have a different special. So in the past, each day of the week was a different specials class, but this year they will have the same special for one entire week. Then the next week, they will have the same special class for the next entire week. And we'll remind them of that in homeroom, but they've really been doing a great job so far. Then after their specials classes, we will have a homeroom time. If you see that SEL stands for social emotional learning. A big part of that time period is journaling and reflection time. And then we take that reflection and journaling time and use to kind of share and discuss with one another. And that's really a time for us to talk about things that are not entirely academic. We talk about things that do impact their academics, but you know, we try and get to know them and build relationships with them during that time period as well. And then the last block ends at 2:55.
So along with that, daily attendance. So for students to receive a full day of attendance, they must attend all their classes. So we are taking attendance in each and every block throughout the day to make sure students aren't just coming in the morning and then leaving all day and then coming back in the evening. So if they do only attend some of their classes, they'll receive a half day of attendance. Students who don't attend any of the live Google Meets are marked absent. So even if they're doing work, if they're not actually in class during our lives, we are marking them as absent because they are not present on the video that day. So if you know your child will not be attending that day, you are to call the main office, just as you would if we were in school if your child was not coming to school that day.
Mr. Warbuck, you're muted.
I'm like a child. See, adults do it too. Okay, I was going to ask. Thank you, Ms. Romberg. So the 6th grade website is something that we have created to make things a lot easier for not only your kids, but for you too. So you have access to see everything that we're doing. You have all the block schedules there. You have a little bit of information of our backgrounds, a little bit about getting to know us if you care about that. There's some fun stuff in there. Okay, get rid of my picture. Thank you. The next one, this is going to be probably the biggest one. So this is a snapshot for the assignment notebook tab of what the assignments are going to be for that week. Okay. It's not really in depth, but it is kind of like a summary so that you have an idea. Hey, what are you working on this week? You can look at that and it will tell you what we are going to be trying to accomplish for the week. Now, keep in mind, lesson plans don't always go the way that they're supposed to. So once in a while, I'm sure there might be assignments on there that have to be extended to the next week. So just be aware of that. The resource tab, this is another great tab. Everything that we use in 6th grade is on this. So I know at the end of last year, all these teachers were, hey, go on to Google thing and then do Wazoo and then here's a Kaboom login. And it was like, I'm sure you guys were going nuts because even the teachers were like, I don't even know what platform I'm using. Everything is on this resource tab. So IXL, anything that the kids are using, I just added the literature book at the bottom. Everything that they need is going to be on here. If we add anything like in the classroom, we'll just add it to this website. So you will have access to all of those resources. The ELA, Math, and Science Social Studies tabs really just gives you a brief overview of kind of what we're teaching and what we're doing this year. And then the block 1, the block 2, and the block 3, those links, they're on every one of these. If the kids are trying to get into a class really quick, they can hop on this, click on block 1 if they're in block 1 during the time we have class, and it sends them right to us. That's really all you guys need. Oh, the diverse learner tabs. This is, if your kid's struggling with reading and they want something read out loud, we have things to help that. Even if it's a PDF file, There are some really helpful extensions on here. Snap and Read is a new one. Same with Co-Writer. I'm still learning these, so I'm not a pro on these yet, but these are things that we will be using in the classroom here and there to help out some of your students or some of your kids, our students. What else do we got here? Expectations. Oh my goodness. Do you guys want me to go over all these, or do you want to just read it on your own? There's a lot of expectations. One of the cool things that I want to make sure, oh, the communication one, that's important. So you see phone numbers on there. We can get text messages too. So again, if you're taking a kid out for a reason, make sure you call the office, but give us a ring and just let us know. That would be helpful. And keep scrolling down. There's one more thing that I wanted to talk about for the expectations. What was it? We hit the community norms. Okay, so Miss Wicks did this awesome thing with all of the kids where we do this every year, and it's always really beneficial where we don't just as teachers come up with the norms. We let the kids give us ideas and say, hey, let's come up with a list of some things that are appropriate, not appropriate. What should we expect when we come into class? And these community norms are created by your kids along with us. So they have a voice in this. And I think that's really, really important. We want these kids to know that they have a voice and they will be heard this year. So just keep that in mind and talk to them about it. If you haven't heard about our community norms, like ask your kids. They should be able to tell you what they are. Then the last thing is about grading. I mean, grading is grading. You guys know grading. The big thing about upper grade, so 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, if something is late, it is going to be a 59, okay? It's a failing grade. So getting things on time, handing them in during, like before the due date or on the due date, it is absolutely critical. That might be a big change. I'm not sure if they did that at the end of last year, and the end of last year was kind of chaotic where it was like, do the work, and then kids did it, and it was like 3 weeks later, it was like, okay, you get a full grade. Now that we're fully remote, it's much more strict, I want to say. Okay, so getting that stuff in on time is going to be absolutely critical. And that's it for the website. But you guys can like check that out. Actually, can we put the link in the message box for that website for those of you that maybe haven't been able to get a chance? But you should have gotten an email with that link in there.
Mr. Remmer, can you open up Google Classroom if it works? I don't know if that link works or not. Awesome. All right, so we just wanted to go over our main learning platform with you so you can kind of see what it looks like if you're ever in the room where your students are doing work or kind of checking in. This is what Google Classroom looks like. If you notice that each classroom has its own icon. Looks like my class has lots of assignments to do coming up. So you can see that list of assignments pops up right on that home page where they have their upcoming assignments, so they know what is due, and it tells you exactly what time it's due. The very top colorful part is where they will log into the live classes. So they've all been doing an excellent job of that so far. And then that stream, if you can kind of see at the top, there's some tabs. The stream is kind of giving them instructions for what to do once they do log into class and other important announcements. But all of their classwork will be found on the classwork tab. Okay, so this is where students will find all of the resources that they need to complete assignments. It's where they will find all of the actual assignments that they need to complete. So I know it looks like a lot right now, but it's divided up into different topics. Since I teach 2 subjects, you can see here there's science and social studies. And once they click on an individual assignment, that will be where they can see additional instructions for that assignment, and then any possible files that are associated with it. Then once they actually view the assignment, it is also where they get to the spot for them to turn in. I know that mine right now, we're in teacher mode, so you can't really see, you can't see how they turn it in, but when students click on it, there is an option then for them to actually submit their work. So in a nutshell, this is what Google Classroom looks like. One thing that we do want to emphasize is that this is where they will be receiving all of their work. This is where teachers will be providing feedback for students' work, but all of their final grades will be on Aspen. Okay, so if students have a question about their grade, they should always check Aspen. I know that they're turning in things on Google Classroom, they're receiving feedback on those assignments on Google Classroom, but all of their grades will be posted on Google Classroom. And sometimes there's projects where like they're doing part of it on Google Classroom and possibly part of it on another website. In that resource tab on the website that we showed you earlier. So it's possible that the actual grade on Aspen, that is where they need to go to correct or to check their actual grades, okay? Because it's possible that like only half of what's been graded is on Google Classroom, and teachers are combining resources to get that to that final grade that will be posted on Aspen. So I know that sounds kind of complicated, but I know that all of us and all of the specials teachers are using Google Classroom. So we spent a long time the first week of school teaching the kids how to navigate Google Classroom. They had practice assignments on Google Classroom and things like that. So they've done a great job so far using that platform, but we just want to make sure that we get a lot of questions about grades sometimes. And so we want to make sure that kids and parents know to check Aspen. That is the final place for the grades.
Speaking of grades, we just wanted to let you know that all of us have we have set our grade books up similarly, where we will be either grading and using a category of classwork or assessments. That's it. That's the only thing that your student or your children, will be doing, is either taking grades by what they do in class or an assessment that they do in class. The difference between last spring and this year, like Mr. Warbach said, is the late grade, but also last year at the end of the year, they were able to resubmit their assignments, and they kept being able to resubmit them on Google Classroom. Most assignments this year will not be able to be resubmitted for a better grade. So we have found that has been a little bit of a struggle these first weeks, because kids are handing things in thinking that they'll get feedback from us and then they can resubmit that, when in actuality, I'm giving them feedback as to what they could do better next time, but they can't resubmit it because the Board of Ed is trying to treat this school year as normal as they possibly can. So just keep in mind, those are the two things that might trip up some kids that's different from 5th grade. One, their work cannot be handed in late or it will receive a failing grade. And two, that they're not going to be able to resubmit their grade. They can on some things, and we will communicate that, but most assignments will not be able to be resubmitted. And if there's ever a tech issue, and I've gotten some emails, we know there's going to be tech issues. We have tech issues, and your kids have been awesome about it. When something's not working, they're always like, it's okay. I mean, it's so sweet. But if there's ever a tech issue, we would just ask that you email us, because we don't want to get into a situation where a kid just logs off and we don't know what happened, because we would have to mark that we would have to mark that kid absent. So please make sure if you lose internet access for whatever reason, just shoot us an email just so we know.
All right, so how will your child really be interacting with their teachers? So as Mrs. Houle said before, there's synchronous learning and asynchronous learning. So during that synchronous learning, which is 40 minutes per day, per class, that will be where the whole group lesson is really usually taught. That can vary day by day, but that asynchronous time is then when we will be doing more small groups, more independent work. And if there's ever a time where students may be able to turn off their camera during their asynchronous time, they can also always come back into the Google Meet to work with us. So the teachers will be in that time, the whole length of their class. But it just depends on, what the student really needs, what support they need. And that'll be on a case-by-case basis too, as we learn more about your students throughout this year. So we did want to give you a couple examples of what resources they will be using. Ms. Wicks, if you want to talk first, I kind of talked about your slides for multiplication.
Great.
Okay, sharing now.
So one of the things, we just wanted to give you some examples of some of the platforms your kids might see. So I'm going to be working a lot with slides. If you see, Ms. Romberg is actually zooming in. So you can zoom in and your kids will be able to see much better what's being expected of them. And then what they can do is I'm always going to make sure I shade those boxes so they know anything that's shaded, they're going to have to actually type in an answer to. In math, at least, it's going to be important for me to not only get answers, but also see their work. So if most often there's going to be slides where they can insert a picture of their work. You can see that Ms. Romberg is just going to insert, they can go to image, and they can go right to the camera, and that's going to give a live picture where they can just hold up their work. They can take a picture of that work, and then that work can be inserted into the document. So when they hand it in, I can not only see their answers, but I can also see their work. So this is probably going to be, I say probably because if I find a better way, I'm going to use it. But right now, this is the way, as a math teacher, I'm going to be able to see their answers, but also see their thought process and their work.
Mrs. Houle, if you want to talk about science and social studies.
Sure, I can talk for a couple minutes. I mean, you've already seen this Google Classroom, but you can see that there's a variety of resources they're going to be using. For the most part, all of their work will be turned in on Google Docs. So this is just the same idea as a Word document. There's usually kind of worksheets that will provide space for them to respond to various questions. Their homework tonight, they had to answer a question using at least 3 of the vocabulary words we've gone over the past couple of days. What they're going to be asked to do in those assignments is going to be different every time. They'll sometimes have graphs that they'll have to analyze. They'll sometimes have to do a scientific writing, including claim, evidence, and reasoning. So the actual skills that they'll be completing on those assignments will vary, but usually they will be turning them in rather than through slides. They will be turning them in through docs. Same thing for social studies, except most of the assignments are using Google Forms. So Ms. Romberg is going to pull up an example of that. A lot of the social studies assignments look something like this. So this is a Google form where there's a combination of different types of questions. It could be short answer, multiple choice, text boxes, things like that. There's also lengthy answer choices if they need to explain more of their thinking and writing. But social studies, we're going to use more of the Google Forms format.
Okay.
For reading, I'm going to be honest with you, reading and writing, we're going to be using a lot of Google Docs. You probably have seen your children working on a slide with pictures, hopefully, because we did a collage on that. And right now we are writing an essay on 3 goals that we are completing this year. So if you don't know about this, ask your kid about it, because I think it's super important for you to see what's important in their life. 2 of them, I said it's got to be school related, and 1 I said it could be anything. So if they have one on there about like leveling up in a video game, you know what? That's important to them right now. So let them have one of the goals, okay? But get to know your kids' goals. Great dinner conversation. This is the age when how was school day? What'd you do? Yeah, nothing, right? So the goals thing, I really do this every year, and I feel like parents really get, I don't know, a better sense of your kid and get some talking points in when your kid's saying like, I don't know, we didn't do anything today. Same old, right? So Google Docs, again, we'll do slides, but anytime I present something new to them and expect them to do something on a different format, I will model it for them. I'm never going to say like, hey, do this, good luck, and throw them to the wolves. It's never going to happen. I'm going to model absolutely everything that I expect them to do and hand in.
All right, so this last slide says favor for Mrs. School. I'm voluntarily participating in something that's like kind of like a master's program. It's more like a professional development to become a national board certified teacher. And as I go through this process, I need examples of, sorry, my dog's barking, examples of student work. And as I'm submitting, evidence to kind of prove that I am a knowledgeable teacher, I'll be submitting examples of assignments that I've created along with examples of student work. When I'm submitting this student work, I will never include last names. It will only be first names, but I do need a parent consent form. So within the next week or so, I'm gonna send out an email with a link to this consent form. Ms. Romberg, if you could just open it up. It's kind of long looking. I don't want it to scare you, but I just wanted to include, there's like legal language that I have to include in it. Basically, it's just a letter explaining the national board program that I'm trying to be a part of, or that I am a part of, and explaining that I may use student work, but that their last names would never be used. The national board would have rights to that work after I submit it, but it would just be on a first name student basis. So if you do consent to that, you would just fill out your name, click the box that says I do, your name, my name, your email address, click the box that says I do give permission. I won't be upset if you do not give permission, that's okay. Just so I know that it's okay to submit work from your students, and then just type your name and the date so that I can get that consent to submit some of those assignments. So just be on the lookout for that. It'll be coming in the next week or so. There's nothing urgent. It's not, a big deal to get it done right away. But if you do see that email, it would help me a great deal if you could fill that out for me. So in advance, thank you for anyone who does fill that out. All right, we didn't really see too many questions in the chat as we went through, but does anyone have any questions at this time?
Great.
Now I know where the students are getting it from. I like silence. No, this is good. In the classroom, I'm like picking on your kids, like, come on.
We
did such a good job. That's it. We're good.
We also want to, we've talked about quite a few times, we welcome you to listen in on our lessons, to listen in on what we're doing during the day. I think this is kind of such a cool opportunity for parents to actually hear how things are taught and how things are explained. So we really welcome that and welcome any type of question or communication. Well, Thank you. If there's nothing more, thank you very much for coming. And anything else you have, we could answer. Yes, you're absolutely allowed to listen to our lessons. And also, I've told your kids, if you explain the math differently, don't let them tell you that I do it one way and only one way. So I told them to let their parents explain the math differently. The pledge, sorry, I'm just going to answer this question. The pledge, we don't have an official homeroom time where we take attendance. It's kind of embedded into our first block. So we haven't done the pledge because we haven't had the homeroom time, I guess. So as a team, we decided that it was a lot to be on a computer from 8 to 3. So the only homework we would ever give is if they didn't finish what we did in class. So our block is about 90 minutes. We do synchronous, or we teach for about 30 to 40 minutes, and then they have independent time. If they don't finish in that 40 minutes, they might have to do some things. But as a team, we decided that we did not want to put your children in a position where they had to log back onto a computer to do homework in the evening.
And I think that's something too that kids. Go ahead, Mr. Warbuck. Okay, so I think that's something too. Kids are figuring out how to use their time still, which might have been a struggle. So you might have seen a couple kids doing some things at home during these past couple weeks. And I think as teachers too, we're trying to figure out the balance of time and how much time it does take the students to do certain tasks, just because they have been out of school for a while and trying to get that back into routine.
And on top of this, just looking at the pace that, I mean, for my class that I'm going, we're writing a paper right now. Normally we would be going a little quicker, but due to the fact that, I mean, I want your kids up and out. I don't want them staring at a screen. I mean, even on the TV, like at 3 o'clock, put the computer away, get rid of the games, like do something. I mean, our posture and our eyes, oh my goodness, this is a strain on everybody. So that's why up to the pacing is going to be a little bit slower than if we were actually in person. But yeah, we're really going to try not to give homework. I mean, we just don't want it. We want your kids to have a life. I mean, a quarantine life.
Okay, if there's no other questions, you can pop out of this meet. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for coming. If you think of something, you can always email us.
We'll see you tomorrow, Asai. Hi.